Well, we have showery. I gotta not use that word. Showery rains coming for Friday and for maybe at least part of Saturday. We will talk about that in the weekend forecast. Tropical storm Tammy, and we'll take a look at Hurricane Norma in the East Pacific. We've got all sorts of watches and warnings up for the Leeward Islands. We'll even take a peek at the long range, and NOAA put out their winter forecast, and we will discuss.
Yay!
Yeah, all right. And we'll discuss that as well. All of that is straight ahead tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on this Thursday, the 19th of October, 2023. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Mulch, topsoil, and sand, and salt, because they are Long Island's largest rock salt source. Depending on what the winter does, you might need some. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. Nowhere can you find better prices. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And we also are brought to you by our affiliate, Tempest by WeatherFlow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you decide to make a purchase of this or anything else from the Tempest by WeatherFlow website, use the coupon code I want a weather station.
You want a weather station?
Yes, you do. And if you do, you will get...
You'll get a big 10, that's right, 10% off.
Yes.
Amazing.
Speaking of amazing, I was watching the satellites through the middle part, in midday, and there was this stick. I mean, literally a stick of clouds. It might not have been more than, I don't know, 5 or 10 miles wide, that was coming in from the south shore of Long Island across central Long Island and into Long Island Sound. And lo and behold, waterspouts, Joe. Showers that popped up, small, tiny little convective things that produced waterspouts in Long Island Sound today. I mean, there is a crazy atmosphere that is sitting over the coast. It's almost as if there's a part of summer that's just sort of hanging on. And, I was talking with Bill yesterday, Bill Goodman from NWS in Upton, and he noted that there was a rather dominant inversion there yesterday, and it was there today, early this morning. William Uber was on the chat board tonight, messaged me this morning that it was raining where he was. And I've seen that happen on Long Island from time to time, but I was really kind of shocked over the idea that there were actually a few waterspouts out there.
And the waterspouts, the pictures, the photographs I saw, they were pencil thin.
Yeah.
Very, very narrow, but still they were there. Amazing.
Yeah, they were. Otherwise, for everybody else, it was a nice warm day. Got up above 70 in some places. I don't know how warm you got to.
I normally would ask the executive producer, but she's at the German club tonight.
Oh, okay. So she won't be yelling down the stairs or shouting through the intercom then.
No, she won't be doing that. She's sitting there and she's listening to the president of the club guiding everybody on how they didn't make as much money as they wanted to for their Oktoberfest. But it rained that weekend, so that's why. Do you have to have a meeting to figure it all out? I guess they have to.
Yes, they have to. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and those of you who are watching and not on the chat board, as I like to say, you're lurking in the background. We love having you too, and those of you who are new, welcome aboard. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel, so turn your notifications on so you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. We are not going to have a show this Sunday, however. I'm going fishing this weekend. So it's a bit of a long weekend. So after tonight, we will be back Monday at 7:35 p.m. And Fridays and Saturdays, we usually don't do a show, but in the event that there's ever a storm, rest assured that Joe Rayo and I will come to the rescue and do a show on a Friday or on a Saturday or both. So, the NOAA winter forecast is out, and I predicted yesterday that they would just pretty much go into the file cabinet and pull up, look up El Nino pattern, and they would put that up, and they would then say above normal northern half, below normal southern half, and then the disclaimer about the NAO. Am I correct?
You are correct. And you
Okay.
did anticipate correctly what they posted earlier today.
All right. Well, basically, they just did what I expected them to do. Look, at the end of the day, who cares? I'm saying this over and over again, and it just drives me crazy. Who cares what the winter forecast is? Who cares? Okay. No one's ever going to come out and say it's going to be cold and snowy. No one's ever going to say it's going to be the coldest winter on record, or the snowiest winter on record, or the warmest and the least snowiest on record. Well, we had that last year, but. No one's ever going to say that. So anyway, I guess everybody just and as I also pointed out yesterday, Joe, what are you going to do with that piece of information? I mean, I could kind of understand it if you're playing, if you're dealing with oil future, heating oil futures and that sort of thing. If you're in agriculture and you're growing crops, I could sort of understand that. But for everybody else, it serves no practical purpose. So anyhow, on that wonderfully positive note from me, Mr. Rayo tonight will be explaining everything as far as the winter forecast is concerned. He has control of the screen, so he can just have at it.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Oh, and let me just say really quick, because last night, if you weren't here last night, those of you who were here last night know this, we had some technical difficulties about 30 minutes into the show, and if they happen again, I'm going to try again to just get us back on the air, which we were able to do yesterday. So just to let you know. But let's hope that it doesn't happen. Okay, your turn.
Okay, well, you were absolutely correct in the assumption that the folks over at the Climate Prediction Center would go with warm north, and actually they went with equal chances or near normal. That's near. What's the difference between near normal and equal chances? I guess equal chances mean that it could either be warm or it could be cold or whatever.
Right.
Anyway,
So basically, it tells you nothing.
you see the seasonal temperature outlook on the screen right now. And for our neck of the woods here in the Northeast, above normal, except that in the case of northern New England, let's say northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and all of the state of Maine, that's where the warmest temperatures or the highest probabilities are, a 50 to 60% probability of above normal temperatures. We are in the 40 to 50% zone. And further down here in this lighter shade of orange, they're leaning toward above normal temperatures, leaning toward above. So in other words, if you're in the darker shade of orange here in northern New England or in the Pacific Northwest, you could see based upon the probability or percent chance in the bottom here, likely. So they are predicting a likelihood that temperatures this winter season, or at least for the three coldest months, December, January, and February, are going to be above normal, and leaning toward that elsewhere in the lighter shades of orange. And again, we have that near normal for the Texas Panhandle, Texas Oklahoma Panhandle, part of northern or northeastern New Mexico, and everywhere else. And the white shade is just equal chances, which means flip a coin, because that's more or less what they are thinking in terms of temperature. As far as the precipitation forecast is concerned, they have the heaviest amount of precipitation falling over the southeast. Now, this area, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this zone here across northern and central Florida, southern sections of Georgia, South Carolina, and also Mississippi and Alabama, you've got a 60% probability, likely, it is alluding to, for above normal precipitation. In fact, in the discussion that they had to go along with these maps, they said that drought would be alleviated across the southeastern part of the country, and especially in this zone here, because of the anticipated above normal precip. Now, the fact is that from what this looks like, Joe, they seem to be alluding to storms coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and then shooting north and eastward adjacent to the Atlantic seaboard, because it's above normal or leaning toward above normal all the way up into our area and southern New England. Then we have the equal chances across most of Pennsylvania and most of upstate New York and central and northern New England. And then over the Great Lakes, we have below normal, and also below normal for the northern plains. Typically, in an El Nino pattern, you have these storms coming in from the Pacific and hitting California, which is probably why they have above normal precip here. And then you cross the Rockies, and it translates into, once they reorganize to the east of the Continental Divide, another round of wet weather, rainy weather over Texas. And then they get down to the Gulf, pull up a bit of more of moisture, and which is why here in the southeast, they've got all of that above normal precipitation. So what does this mean? Does it mean a wet, rainy, mild winter for us? At first glance, yes. But let's also point out that in spite of all of this, there will be periods, there will be shots of unseasonably cold weather, maybe for short durations, but there will be cold and there will be storms. Maybe one or two of those storms will arrive during those colder periods and allow for some of the white stuff, which I know a lot of our viewers.
All that matters is it just needs to be cold when there's storms around. And we've had winters like that. I mean, I can remember 2005, 2006, which was actually a fairly warm winter, was also a winter that produced above normal snowfall for much of the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic states. So, I mean, there's a slew of examples where that happens. This doesn't tell you when, it doesn't tell you how. It just sort of gives you this broad brush generic, okay, it's above normal, below normal. What if it's only 1 degree above normal? What if it's, 0.5 degrees above normal? I hardly think that would be any big deal. Frankly, it's probably better off if it is above normal, if only because of the fact that if the cost of heating oil goes up, you'll save some money. So there is, there's that. I think it's more interesting that the North Atlantic oscillation has been mostly negative, except for about a 2-week period in late August, early September. It has been mostly negative from late June right through today. And it's still forecast to be negative for the next 2 weeks, although not very negative. But the point is, it seems to want to be negative. And I think that's an interesting dynamic that is there right now. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be there in November. I don't know if it's going to be there in December. But 4 months with a persistent negative NAO is highly unusual. So you look at some years, 2009, 2010, 2011 in particular, those were years where we had long periods of the NAO. Because normally that's the one pattern that seems to be, that is the most transient of all the ones we look at. When you look at the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, and all those other acronyms, the North Atlantic Oscillation is the one that seems to be the most volatile and has less of a shelf life. So, like I said, I find that part of the equation right now rather intriguing. So we'll see where that carries us. But other than that, it's October the 19th, and nothing is supposed to happen in the month of October anyway, for the most part, except maybe later next week in the northern Rockies. Some places might see their first snow event, depending on one thing or another. But let's see where we are a month from now, and then we could have another conversation.
Well, Bill Kirk at Weather Trends 360, and we've had him on the show a couple of years ago on his on his website, Weather Trends 360, he points out that the polar vortex is developing over the North Pole as it does every fall. The more symmetrical the polar vortex is, the more likely cold weather is going to be bottled up at the North Pole. But when it wobbles, with vortices spinning off, that allows the Arctic air to invade the middle latitudes. For now, it's starting off relatively uniform and symmetrical, keeping the northern hemisphere on the warm side. Now,
Actually, I have a shot of it. Hold on, I'm going to bring that up.
Okay.
Are
you going to 10 millibars or?
Yes, we're going to go 10 millibars.
Yes.
This is actually in about 5 days, Joe. It is actually somewhat symmetric. It's not exactly symmetrical. It's sort of stretchy. But in about 5 days, it really stretches out. Actually, it looks like it splits. This is very interesting. By the time we get to Halloween, Joe, the polar vortex splits in two, with one center gravitating toward Hudson Bay, and the other center, which is the stronger center, which is also interesting. The stronger center migrates towards northern Hudson Bay, the other one into Siberia, but it's the one to the south that is more stronger. So we're seeing maybe that there's going to be an early split to the polar vortex coming. Now, how that translates, does it couple down to the surface? That we don't know. There's a whole bunch of other factors at play, but we're going to see if this is right, we're going to see an early split of the polar vortex in about a week or so.
Well, in terms of what he says, Bill Kirk says about El Nino, in regard to all of this, he says it continues to strengthen, and he says it's going to near its peak in the next month or so. So, we're not talking about, or at least he's not talking about a strong El Nino in mid or late winter. He's thinking that within the next month, which means by mid-November or late November, it's going to reach its peak. And then from there, he says it's likely to weaken, as we can already see cooler subsurface Pacific Ocean temperatures eroding the very warm eastern equatorial Pacific. So weakening El Ninos, moderate El Ninos, historically mean snowy winters in the United States, and the official Weather Trend 360 forecast is predicting, now hang on to your seatbelt, all you winter weenies out there, Weather Trend 360 is predicting the snowiest U.S. winter in 10 years, with a deep south ice storm track. Who's our friend in Alabama who's always asking about possible blizzards?
Oh, Jess Harden.
Are you listening out there? The Weather Trends is suggesting that there's going to be a deep south ice storm track with nor'easters up the East Coast. And then he points out that Weather Trend 360 clients, of which we are not, but those who pay for their specific outlooks did receive an email PDF report summarizing their expectations on a month-by-month basis earlier today. So, if you want to look up Weather Trends 360 and want to get all of their details, we pass snippets of their information, what little that they do provide out there to us, or what's available on the internet. And that's what they're calling for, Joe. They're saying that it's going to be the snowiest winter in the U.S. in 10 years, and a possible ice storm track across the deep south, and an El Nino that's going to peak within the next 4 or 5 weeks and then rapidly diminish and allow for, because the assumption is that the very warm eastern equatorial Pacific is already seeing an invasion of subsurface Pacific Ocean, cooler subsurface Pacific Ocean temperatures. And according to Bill Kirk, traditionally, a weakening El Nino, a moderate El Nino, historically means historic wintry weather for the U.S., especially here in the Northeast. So we shall see what we shall see.
Right. And I'll go back, Joe, to what I put up the sea surface temperatures, and I've boxed out the area where the El Nino is relevant. with regards to above normal temperatures. And I mean, I'm sort of looking at it, and I'm thinking back to the big El Nino year. When was that? 2015, 16. Compared to that, it's not anywhere near the anomalies that we saw. There are higher anomalies on the east side of this than versus the central, because I've always been told that if it's a central-based El Nino versus a east-based El Nino, that's better for the eastern part of the United States as far as winter weather is concerned. I don't know that that's true, but I've discovered, Joe, in weather, as soon as as you and I have said many times, you try to find that holy grail, that silver bullet that's going to work, and it works every time, and every single time, as soon as everybody finds out about it, it stops working, and that's kind of how I feel about a lot of this stuff. I was told for the longest time that, warm water temperatures in the Northeast Pacific is going to mean a negative APO. Well, that theory got blown out. The Siberian snow cover theory got blown out. The splitting of the polar vortex doesn't always translate. So that's why we could just sit here all day long. None of this matters in the last analysis. I can tell you, just looking at this map, you could certainly see that the ocean water temperatures in all of the Pacific are pretty warm, except for a few cold pockets in the Northeast Pacific, in the area that's probably right along, say, 25 degrees, between 25 and 30 degrees north from west of Baja California to Hawaii, 20, maybe to 20 to 25 degrees north, 15 to 20 degrees north, right in there is all below average. So I kind of think that's actually unusual, because it would you normally see that all warm up. And here's another thing. The El Nino this year, you had a number of people, and I think rightfully so, that in El Nino years, the Atlantic hurricane season is usually on the quiet side, near normal or below normal. Not this one. Exactly, not this one. There's a lot of and Ms. Fallerite points it out in her comment. There was a lag time to all of this. So I sort of argued that maybe that long La Nina period of 3 years has still not been completely worked out of the atmosphere, and the impacts of this developing El Nino probably hasn't still been worked into the atmosphere yet. And again, and I've said this many times, and I'll say it again, there's been a lot of weird stuff like that that's happened in the last 12 months. And I really do believe that we're going to see some things this winter that are going to, cause heads to spin a little bit. I'm not sure I don't know what they are. I don't know when they will happen, but I think that we are going to see some things this winter across the United States that are going to, leave make your jaw drop.
Well, sometimes baseball announcers, and incidentally, if you are an announcer for a baseball club, usually you will have a job for at least 30 or 40 years. Of course, Vince Scully was the Dodger announcer for something like 60 plus years. But regardless of whether you're in the business for 1 year or 60 years, something always happens on the baseball field where the announcer will say, well, I've been watching this game for a long, long time. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. And the same, in a way, holds true for forecasters, meteorologists who have been on the air or have been doing weather for a good number of years, like you and I. Every once in a great while, something happens, some kind of a pattern shift or a pattern change or whatever like that pops up, and either you or I will say, I've been watching the weather now for God knows how long. I've never seen this before. And you know what? This may be one of those winters where we're going to say something like that.
Well, look what happened in California last year with all the snow. I mean, right. Did we ever see anything quite like that? No. There's been a few other things that have gone on that I can't seem to. They're not coming to the top of my head at the moment, but I think we're going to see there is going to be more weirdness. Water spouts in Long Island Sound on a day like today, I would probably put into that category on a very, very small scale. But let's keep our eyes open going in the next couple of months. I think we're going to be in for some interesting times. David Fuller hitting Super Chat tonight. Worried about frost early next week. I don't know if any frost is going to make it that far south. For I don't think there's a problem, say, Sunday night. If there's going to be a night that there might be a problem, it more than likely will be Monday night. But we'll talk about that next Monday, which is our next show. And the chairman, Scott Briller, is also hitting Super Chat tonight. Actually, there's a couple here. Angel Fire again.
Yeah.
Where the overnight low. Oh, wait, you asked the question. Where was the overnight low in the lower 48? Was it Angel Fire, New Mexico, or Peter Sinks, Utah? I'll go with Angel Fire. I'll use the theory that the trend is your friend. So I'll say Angel Fire. Johnny Quest hit Super Chat tonight. Thanks for hitting the tip jar, Johnny. He says, I think the Hanga Tonga volcanic eruption has thrown everything out of whack. There's a lot to that, because that was not ash that it shot up. It was water vapor into the stratosphere. And I've seen a few articles about that saying that event may have actually added an extra degree or so of warming across the globe in the last in the last, what is it, 12 months? No, it was back in January last year that happened. So in the last 9 or 10 months. So there is something to that. I really think that has done something to screw things up. And Anthony Spiraccio, thank you for hitting the tip jar as well, and for your kind words about our great weather analysis. Well, we try.
We do our best.
We do our best with what was given to us by the good Lord. So let's put it that way. All right, so we've got other stuff going on, so I might as well switch off to the satellite loop. We're just past the 8 o'clock hour, and we haven't broken down yet, so that's a good sign. Maybe the demons will leave us alone tonight.
Tino's asking, is Long Island behind schedule for a frost? We haven't gotten any here yet, and I on my Facebook memories page a few years ago on this date, we had our first frost here in the Hudson Valley, and there was the declaration that the growing season was over. Obviously, that's not going to be the case this year, because obviously there is that potential. We'll get into the long range in a little bit, but there's that potential, Joe. It looks like later next week, once again, we're going to be up there flirting with the 70-degree mark.
Yes, I agree with that. We have Hurricane Norma. Excuse me. Hurricane Norma on the lower left, making its way toward the southern tip of the Baja Peninsula. We'll get to that in a bit. We also, on the lower right, you could see some of the blow-off clouds from Tropical Storm Tammy, and we will also get to that in just a little bit. But meanwhile, those high clouds are moving in ahead of the cold front. And there's also a patch of moisture with a weak low off of eastern North Carolina that is creeping northward. And that is going to bring, I think, some showery rains up the coast overnight and tomorrow morning into areas from easternmost Pennsylvania to southern New England, probably more toward the coast than for inland spots. But that'll be the first shot. This is kind of a very disjointed system, because you've got this, I don't know, Joe, you got this deep trough that's moving into the Great Lakes, but there's this lead low that's kind of, it's weak, but it's there, and it's moving up, and it's really not going to do much of anything, because the energy from the deep trough is still too far northwest. But that in and of itself, when it moves eastward, will generate another low, probably somewhere near New Jersey or Long Island or whatever, or just offshore, and then that's the one that's going to become a deepening storm that will go up into the Gulf of Maine and set us up for what should be we're going to get some showery rains into Saturday afternoon, and then a better day on Sunday. But Sunday's issue is going to be the wind, because it's going to get windy.
Right. I've been saying, for the last couple of days, some weathercasters have been talking about, well, it's going to be the 7th consecutive rainy Saturday. Well, actually, we're not talking about a complete washout, because it looks like Saturday there will be precipitation, but it's going to be, just spotty shower activity, nothing really heavy or significant. But the main headline, I think, this weekend is going to be the wind on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you. Radars are actually still fairly quiet. There is some stuff aloft in upstate New York. You can see there's the little hook of showers in eastern North Carolina. Not overly impressive here, but it is starting to creep northward. It'll probably expand a bit as it moves up the coast. And then you've got these bands of showers now moving into western Pennsylvania. Then there's a break. Then there's another band in eastern Ohio. Then there's a break. Then there's another band behind that in western Ohio and southern Indiana. You've got some steadier rains, but even up around the Great Lakes, I mean, it looks like a pinwheel, really. So,
Right.
so there, when this system moves eastward, I think it's likely that we're probably going to see this behave in a similar fashion, where it's going to be more like a in and out rain or showers. There'll be some breaks in between. I don't think it's going to be a continuous rain from tomorrow morning right into Saturday afternoon.
Right. Right. There may be some. I mean, if we're going to actually, to me, if we're going to get any kind of significant or heavy rainfall, whatever we get out of this, I think the worst is going to come more like later tomorrow and tomorrow night, as opposed to Saturday. Saturday, again, is not going to be a terrible washout of a day. There will be some showers around. And then by Sunday, hold on to your hat, because the winds could be gusting to maybe upwards to 40 miles an hour or more.
Yeah. The chairman banged the tip jar a second time, thank you, and he points out that the first average frost for New York City is November 14th. That's for New York City. I would imagine that for areas inland, it's a lot sooner than that. But November 14th for frost in and around New York City. Meanwhile, the radar west of the Mississippi, not a flake, not an ice pellet, not a raindrop, nothing. And we don't have much in the way of convective weather to worry about. Just really quick, I'll bring up SPC and we'll take a look at what they're doing. No organized severe weather today and tonight. Well, tonight, because today's over with. They do have a marginal risk set for tomorrow in South Carolina, southern portions of North Carolina, and in eastern and southeast Georgia. So we've got a marginal risk there and no tornado risk, so that's good to know. And they do have convective risk for general thunderstorms going all the way up, well, from northern Florida all the way up the Appalachians into central New England. I mean, I was sort of leaning against the idea that there'd be convection, but on the other hand, the spirally nature of what we're looking at, I suppose it's not impossible that, if we could have water spouts on a sunny day in Long Island Sound, you can have a thunderstorm pop up in that mess Friday and Saturday.
I would think so. I wouldn't even call it a thunderstorm. I'd say thunder shower. Get a rumble or two of thunder with some rainfall, perhaps, yeah. And it probably would come, I think, either late tomorrow night or maybe first thing in the morning on Saturday, but it doesn't look like, anything to write home about.
Helen Bertona, thank you, Helen, for hitting Super Chat. Hopefully we can have some rain-free weekends too soon, she says. Well, yeah, it can't rain forever on every weekend. Unless, of course, if you're lucky enough to have Wednesdays and Thursdays off, because that's been the 2-day period that for the most part in the last 2 months they've been dry. I actually was talking with somebody today that is in that position, so they've been pretty happy about the way the weather has been. WPC with rainfall, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, so we're not really worried about any kind of localized flooding here. And up in Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and into Maine, there's an area of 1.5 to 2 inches being indicated. And of course, those folks have been pretty much raining. It almost feels like it's been nonstop since June.
They have marginal WPC for day 3, which would be Saturday. Does have central and northern New England and a sliver of northeastern New York State. in the marginal zone for flash flooding or excessive rainfall. So there you go.
Latex Dreams, aka Tim, has the polar vortex formed? I don't know if you were you there at the beginning of the show? I mean, that's all we talked about, and I did show it, so the answer is yes. So if you doubt my word, you can go watch it on a replay because it is there. Rainfall amounts in the Great Lakes in the next 7 days, some areas of 1.5 inches. Also, we're looking at up to several inches of rain in central Texas and northwest Texas and much of Oklahoma into southeastern Kansas for the next 7. Half inch to 1.5 inches to 2 inch plus amounts in the northern Rockies and across much of that covering the state of Montana and northern Idaho, and some of that's going to be snow, and it might be significant, and also not too shabby in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, this is just pretty typical for them. 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. I don't think there's any snow issues to worry about in the short term. I'll just real quick, we'll pull up weather.gov just to see if there's any watches or warnings, and you can see there isn't. I mean, there's just absolutely nothing going on. I think that might be a wind advisory that they have up in northeastern Montana, and I'm guessing that these are heat advisories that we're seeing in coastal California. Yes, heat advisories Wednesday in coastal California. They have on their homepage in San Francisco, I guess they haven't gotten around to changing it, but they have the story that they put up was from a couple of days ago, so it says heat advisory Wednesday and Thursday, so maybe they need to know the fact that it is Thursday now, so perhaps it might not be a bad idea if they wind up updating that. So there you go. Okay, so just talking about the NAO, and here's the chart that goes back to mid-June when it went negative. Was negative through July, got to neutral for a day or two in early August, went negative again, and then toward the end of August and the beginning of September, first 10 days or so in September, it was actually positive, and only at 1 standard deviation from the mean, though, and then it's been negative ever since. And we went to almost 2 standard deviations on October 15th, and we're going to 2 standard deviations over the weekend with this developing low in the Gulf of Maine. Then it kind of moves its way toward the neutral line, but doesn't quite get there, and then it just sort of straddles below it right through the end of October and into the first days of November. So as I said earlier, this is something that is intriguing to me that it's doing this in a fairly consistent way. So, well, there's your polar vortex, Tim. I still had the map up. It splits in 2 on a week from Monday, so right around Halloween, or just before that, it winds up splitting in 2, if that is correct. So, what that means, 2 weeks down the road after that, I have no clue. So anyway, here's the. Let's go to the. I haven't looked at the GF, the new. This is the 18Z GFS, which I haven't looked at. So here's our creeping rain. Sorry, let me switch this. 18Z. There's our creeping rain up the coast of North Carolina tonight, and the low that is sitting over Michigan. By tomorrow morning, it's got there's rain up through New Jersey and toward Long Island and New York City. That low really doesn't do anything. The front gets closer and closer, and then you see a low early Saturday morning northeast of the North Carolina coast that runs northward to Cape Cod, Nantucket, and deepens, gets down to a 983 low. Even with my glasses, I can't see. This is getting to be a routine with me. All right, looks like an 83 to me. And, of course, you see the tight isobars. It actually implies, Joe, that it may start getting windy here Saturday afternoon and continuing Saturday night into Sunday. The low really gets wrapped up, gets down to a 79 in the Gulf of Maine Saturday evening. And Sunday, again, doesn't look like we'll get any precip or instability either. There will be some snow showers up in north central New York and maybe up in northern New Hampshire, with some colder air. Then that pulls away. On the lower right, you can barely see it. That is Tammy. Doesn't really get much further west than that before this trough just picks it up and kicks it away to the northeast. Meanwhile, in the northwest, you've got some energy coming in on Sunday, and you can see a little bit of snow there in Montana. Then some more energy comes in for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And actually has showing a fair amount of snow. It's a bunch of runs in a row. There's an 88 low, an 85 low. Is that a 95? The 95 low that comes into coastal Oregon. And with that energy, and then there's a cold high that's settled right just north of the Montana border. So this might be the first important snowfall later next week. And this is where WPC has all that precip up there for Montana and Idaho, central and northern Idaho, Montana, and much of Wyoming, and then eventually even into parts of Colorado. So that would be interesting. And then into the Dakotas. There's that dark blue snow there in North and South Dakota, if this is right.
Well, Climate Prediction Center has on their hazards map.
You have the hazards map up?
Talking about snow, I'm going to put it up right now.
All right, I got to switch.
You can see what they're looking at. Boom, boom. Take a look. Slight chance for heavy snow. And let me tell you, Joe, that's a pretty large area, and at least in my opinion, covering just about all of Montana, which is not exactly a small state, portions of Idaho, a good part of Wyoming, northern and eastern sections of Colorado, and on into portions of Nebraska and the Dakotas, and even a small corner of northwestern Kansas. This whole area on the 27th and 28th of October, which means that we're talking about a week from now. 1 week from now, there may very well be, if they're correct, a week from tomorrow, the 27th and 28th, Friday the 27th, Saturday the 28th. They're looking for a slight chance of a possible heavy snowfall within this zone here. So the very first really significant or widespread snowfall in the contiguous United States this season may very well be only a little more than a week away if you take this at face value.
Well, it's got to happen soon. Now, sometimes we can get clues. But most of the time, the early season snows are going to be up in the plains and in the Rockies, and maybe eventually into the Great Lakes. So maybe we could get some clues in the next coming weeks about how things are playing out across the United States and what it might or might not mean for the long term. But this one does look like this may be the first important snowfall, and yeah, it does look fairly extensive. A deep low goes to the western lakes, and of course, while that's happening, we've got a bit of ridging here in the eastern part of the United States. So this next high, I think Monday, Sunday, Monday, the two coolest days. Maybe temperatures edge up. We'll have a cold Monday night, and then temperatures might start to nudge up a bit on Tuesday. But then starting on Wednesday and going into Thursday and Friday with the high kind of anchored from off the New Jersey coast southwest into North and South Carolina, there'll be a little sort of a southwest wind or a west-southwest wind. As long as we get sunshine out of it, I think you're right. We might see temperatures Thursday and Friday of next week go above 70 or go into the 70s. The next cold front would time out for next weekend for Friday night, Saturday, but with this low, if it's as deep as what the models are showing, going into the western lakes and tracking up towards James Bay, the trailing cold front with it probably won't have much in the way of any moisture. And that's what the models have been sort of hinting at. Certainly this run of the GFS has. And then it sort of has this cold high that sort of tries to bridge across, but then another low comes out in the plains right around the 28th or 9th of October, and that brings snow from Colorado to the eastern Dakotas, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the western part of the UP of Michigan. And then this would time out for some rain showers on Halloween itself. And then it does have a fairly solid shot of cold air that comes in behind that one for the 1st of November. What is that, a to thicknesses between 522 and 528, and that's a high that actually brings cold air pretty far south into the United States. And out it goes, and then here comes another low. This one on this model run sort of comes out of Texas and then runs northeastward. It looks like that's so far down the road, who knows? But um, yeah, we'll warm up for a couple of days next week, and then the negative NAO may start to flex again.
I like when we get these late season warm spells, and where I am, you hear all kinds of critters out there in the evening, crickets and katydids or whatever, and then you get that shot of very cold or unseasonably cold air that comes in, and all of a sudden, the very next night, you go outside and there's nothing but silence. That's
right.
It's like that's it, boom. So
yeah, it's pretty silent here, Joe, because we've already had 1, 2, 3, I think 4 days where we got down to 32, 33. So the bugs are now all gone. All gone. So I'm happy about that. I still had them around, and we needed to get that first night with temperatures down close to freezing, and we got there, so I'm happy. And by the way, a year ago today, was it a year ago today or a year ago yesterday? I think it was a year ago yesterday, Joe. I got down to 17.
Wow.
That was quite an experience and quite a surprise to see a temperature that low that early. So didn't happen this year to get down to 17, but we certainly already had our freezing temperatures here in the mountains of North Georgia.
I should point out to you though, Joe, that you say all the bugs are gone now, but this came out today. The murder hornet's cousin.
Oh God!
Is now in
the arson hornet? It runs around. It runs around setting people on fire. Is that the arson hornet?
No, it's a live yellow-legged hornet, which was found in Georgia and is the first to be discovered in the United States. It is a cousin of the larger northern giant hornet. The yellow-legged hornet also preys on honeybees. Originally from Southeast Asia, the yellow-legged hornet can grow nests with an average of 6,000 workers. And again,
are they union workers? That's what I would like to know.
Wow. Anyway, called a Vespa volatina, which was found near Savannah, Georgia, and has now put the American agricultural community on high alert, much the same reaction that the discovery of the northern giant hornet, the Vespa mandarina, also called the Asian giant hornet or murder hornet, in Washington elicited in 2019. So you're living in the state, Joe, Georgia.
I'll let you know if I see one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, I doubt that we'll see them up here because it's just too it's just already been too cold. So they're already, whatever they do in the wintertime, I guess they hibernate. So they must be already doing that.
I mean, what happens in the when on those frigid cold nights or whatever? What happens to the bees? Do the bees die? Do the yellow jackets die? Or
no, well, the bees in their hive, they hibernate, or they actually use their body heat. Their body heat keeps them warm. They kind of clump up into a ball, and they generate their own body heat.
See, we suspect. I mean, and Renata and I, we suspect that there may be a wasp nest underneath the siding on one side of our house, because we've been seeing every so often, occasionally a wasp or two get into the house.
Yeah.
And I've been saying, well, no big deal, because when it gets cold, and when it gets very cold, that'll take care of that. But maybe they're like bees. Maybe they just huddle together during the wintertime.
They may very well. Briller Jeopardy tonight. And before we do that, Keith James II, thanks for banging the tip jar. And he asks, did Buffalo, New York get a big lake effect snow last November? Nothing came of it after last winter/snow shutdown. I think they did. Last winter they did get, going into last winter they got that big lake effect snow event where some places got 7 or 8 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
And And yeah, that was their biggest of the season. I mean,
Right.
after that, it was
And,
all.
and
all
and it was, we were thinking, well, maybe that's a prelude of a big winter in the Northeast, and that obviously didn't happen. So, yeah, but they did. It did happen. It was last November.
right.
All right, let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy, okay? Shall we?
Yes. Well, tonight the chairman has provided us with average low temperatures in October for 5 different cities, and you, of course, out there playing the game, will have to figure this all out. Average low temperatures in the month of October for the following cities, starting with Las Vegas, Nevada. What is the average low temperature
Yeah,
in
I'm not good at this. For the month of October or November? October.
October?
Oh, I don't know. I'll say 71, 72. 72.
Way, way off. Much too warm, Joe.
Much too warm. Okay. Well, Keith James says 62. John Melander says 60. I've never been to Vegas, so I don't know.
John Melander hits it right on the nose.
Bangs it at 60. Very, very good.
60. Yes, I've been to Las Vegas twice. First time around, it was because my daughter wanted to go. So I went screaming and kicking.
Yes.
The second time, my wife said, well, if we're going to be visiting people in Arizona, as Las Vegas
Might
is
as
so...
well go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Chuck Cardillo says that the lake effect took place last year in December. Okay.
All right.
That works for me.
Well, how about the average low temperature in October for Miami?
Miami?
Miami.
I'll say I don't know. I'll say 71.
Not bad.
Frank Scalera said 72.
Right.
John
Melander said 73.
Tyler Fienga said 72. Michael Azera says 76. Helen Bertona says 73. David Fuller 72. Christina Pedia said 68.
But Bella Lugosi.
I love that name. In fact, I was watching The Mark of the Vampire with Lionel Barrymore right before the show started on Turner Classic Movies. Bela Lugosi.
74.
And Bela Lugosi was in that movie too.
Yes.
Okay, next.
How about Mary Richards' favorite town?
Minneapolis?
Yes.
I'll say.
Tyler, you came so close.
I was going to say 43. Tyler Fienga said 42. Frank Scalera 44. Rich Rothmansky 40.
Any Tom Seaver fans in the audience?
Chuck Cardillo 44. Michael Azera 40. Christina Pedia 41. 41.
41, yes. And how about the Grand Ole Opry?
Nashville.
Nashville.
I'll say.
Teensy and Weensy are dancing to the.
I'll say.
There's peas in a pod or 2 melons in a patch.
I'll say 56.
You added a 6 to that.
So did Tyler Frank. So I should have just said 50?
Yeah, well.
Okay. Well, John Melander said 51, and Mark Franz said 50. Hi, Mark. So it's 50, correct?
Right. It is 50.
All right. What's the next one?
It wasn't Mark Weiner. It was Mark France.
Yes.
All right. How about Central Park?
Oh, God.
Well, Joe, you were a native.
I know, but this stuff, it's like my memory is, in the last month or so, it's just like really not working well. 54.
Nope.
Christina Pedia said double nickels. Helen Bertona 54. Keith James 55. William Uber 48. Anthony Spiraccio 53. Chuck Cardillo 51.
Ooh, very close.
50.
50. No.
Not 50.
51.
51. All right, so that's Chuck Cardillo.
Yeah, Chuck Cardillo.
Chuck
That's right.
Cardillo. Frank Scalera is first runner-up at 52.
Yes.
All right, was that the last one?
That was the last one, and the chairman just hit Super Chat for a third
You
time.
must be working overtime, Scott. Thank you for banging the tip jar. A lot of folks have been doing that lately. Thank you. Chat board since right, the bonus question which I have here. How much measurable if you added all the snowfalls in the month of October since 1869 in New York City's Central Park, how much snow would you have? Okay? So the cumulative snowfall for all the Octobers from 1869 to this October, what has been the total snowfall? Keith James, the second, says 6 inches.
I would say 2.9.
You say 2.9. Cetopedia says 5 inches. Tyler Fiega says 3.4. Helen Bertona says 8. Michael Azera is, Central Park in northern Canada, maybe 28, but no. John Melander says 4. Tom Contino is the closest one at 4.5. So I'm going to actually give it to Tom. Because if we have to wait for somebody to get the right fraction, we might be here all night. 4.7 inches is the total amount of snow cumulative in the month of October since 1869. And wow. Brandon Doherty just banged the tip jar. Thank you, Brandon, for hitting Super Chat tonight. And also, Mother, we should let everybody know that Mother Briller continues to improve. So that is great news. We're always happy to hear that she's doing well and certainly doing better after her well, it's not a little fall, but she had a fall. But she's doing better. So that's good news, and we are happy about that.
Brandon Doherty says he's in the weeds tonight. I don't know exactly what that means, but
yes,
doing schoolwork.
I hope so. I want to interpret it a different way. So I have got my bag packed and I'm going fishing. I'm going to go fishing on the Oconee River tomorrow and Saturday, and that's in Tennessee, on the Tennessee side. And then I'm just going to do a little exploring in Tennessee and northwest Georgia. I think I'll go up to Lookout Mountain again, the Tennessee side, and then the Tennessee side of Lookout Mountain is elevation is 1,600 and change feet, and the Georgia side is actually about 2,400 feet up. But the views from up there are beautiful, so I'm hoping to get some good pictures.
And we hope you have a good time. Everybody needs a little downtime, and that having been said, I guess we'll see each other on Monday.
Yes, Monday back at 7:35. Those of you who are on Patreon, on my subscription platform, don't worry, you'll get your weather posts, and we'll have weather videos up as well, like I do every single day, including the Weather in 5 podcast. So I have 2 podcasts going. We have the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and then I have Weather in 5, which is 5 days in 5 minutes. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the description to this video. And if you do make a purchase, use the coupon code I Want a Weather Station. And if you do, you'll get
10% off.
Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Your go-to place this winter for anything with snow removal, but especially when it comes to rock salt, because they are Long Island's largest rock salt source. And they provide rock salt to all the snow removal folks, a lot of the snow removal folks on Long Island, and they've got people that come from outside of Long Island who can't find rock salt where they are. They drive their trucks and pick it up there. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And thank you, one and all, for hitting the tip jar tonight. David Fuller, Johnny Quest, Anthony Sparacchio, Helen Bertona, Keith James II, Brandon Doherty, and not once, not twice, but 3 times for the chairman. So thank you all. I can actually go to Arby's tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I had an Arby's nearby me, that guy that says, we have the meats. I said, you have the meats, but you don't have any restaurants in my immediate vicinity. So the heck with it.
Bella Lugrisi, how old are you? And the reason why I asked that, you say fishing is boring unless you catch an actual fish. Well, that's sort of the point. Okay. And then it's disgusting. Why is it disgusting? I don't know. So,
Well,
I'm
that's not
just,
a
I'm
quote from
just
him.
kind of curious how old you are. I mean, for me, it's just the most relaxing thing. Uh, if you're stressed out and and I'm not really that stressed out. I just enjoy being in the outdoors, and I catch and release because I'm not one to clean them, so I'm not going to take one home and cook it. But although I do like seafood, but I do catch and release because I just believe that you know I should put them back
Well,
the way I.
one of the highlights of my summer
Oh,
is
Bella says it was a joke from the great Dave Barry. Okay, no problem. Well, I just wanted to check. Sometimes you get the young folks. No one's ever taken them out fishing.
uh,
So that's why I asked. But I'd still love your name, Bella Lugrisi. I think it's great.
the highlight of my summer is when my son and I go out to Oscawana Lake, which is right here where I live or whatever, and we fish for usually we
Bluegills,
catch sunnies,
sunnies, and bluegills.
the bluegills, and what the fish with the long snout,
Pickerel,
pickerels,
pickerel.
yeah,
They can give you a pretty good fight too.
yeah, they do.
Yeah,
That to me is fun, is
yeah,
being able to do that for a few hours with my boy.
yeah. I'm gonna go. I'll probably go next month here locally to Lake Nottely and do some striped bass, fish for striped bass. This They get really big. They get 30 and 40 pound striped bass in there, and then I actually caught a 20 pounder. But I went a few months ago with my son-in-law and my grandson, so I definitely want to do it again. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday at 7:35. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.